They're lying to you. Don't buy it. Don't believe them. Hey guys, Britt here. Welcome to End Times Bible Prophecy. What am I talking about? Who am I talking about? Well, I'm specifically talking about the European Central Bank, the European Union, but really all the governments and central bankers of the world. They're lying to you about central bank digital currency. In this case, specifically the rollout of the digital euro. So in this video, we're going to talk about, well, what they're lying about. We're going to look at what they've said, what they're doing to point out that they're lying. And then we're going to talk about how the rollout of the digital euro actually sets the system up to fail, the financial system in Europe. And then they'll turn around and claim, well, we have the solution in the digital euro and this digital system of entrapment that we've created. They'll propose as the very solution the thing that's going to help facilitate the crisis that takes place. So you'll want to stay tuned to the end and see how that is. You need to understand what they're trying to do so that we can inform people, hopefully try to put a stop to this. But again, we know what the Bible says. But let's start right here. So the propaganda is in full court press, as we would say here in America. This is from France 24. It says, European Central Bank's digital euro sparks flurry of online misinformation. So I would assume I would be included in that when they say this. It says, European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde's recent remarks on a digital euro prompted a fresh wave of misinformation online, highlighting an uphill battle ahead to convince the public of the project's merits. Well, it is an uphill battle because there are no merits for the public. Losing freedom, losing liberty, losing privacy, not really sure what the merits are for the public. All the merits are for the totalitarians in the European Union. Let's see what this says. It says the decision to create a digital euro, essentially an electronic form of cash backed by the European Central Bank, has not been made yet, and any possible launch would be years away. So do you really believe that? Now, officially, they may not have legislatively implemented this. Do you really believe the decision has not been made yet? And that the possible launch is years away? But when Lagarde, in a press conference this month, referenced an October 2025 deadline for moving to the next stage of preparations, social media lit up with alarmed messages that the launch was imminent. Well, because she set an October 2025 deadline, and that would be 4.5 months away from right now. So yeah, I call that imminent. And they say, oh no, that didn't happen. Look, we looked at this at the time. So here we go. European Central Bank sets October 2025 target for digital euro launch. That's from March 9th. And here we have an excerpt of that speech. Put to bed, put to reality. This digital euro, the deadline for us is going to be October 2025. And we are getting ready for that deadline. That's a direct quote from Christine Lagarde. But what all these people had these alarmed messages. It says Harold Wilimski, a member of the European Parliament from Austria's far-right Freedom Party, was among those posting that the ECB, quote, wants to introduce the digital euro in October. An incorrect claim that spread in several languages. We just read the direct quote right here. The deadline is going to be October 2025, and we're getting ready for that deadline. That's from Christine Lagarde herself. It was reported in multiple media outlets. We watched the video of her saying it. They're not disputing that, oh no, it was deep fake by AI. They've never disputed that. But it's an incorrect claim. So you see this propaganda that goes out, and then they call what we're reporting misinformation, and here they are spreading propaganda. The claim was echoed on X by Nicolas Dupont-Aignan, the Eurosceptic head of the Rise Up France party, who added that the project was madness for our freedoms. Well, yeah, because it's madness for people's freedoms. Other widely shared posts repeated misconceptions that have long dogged the project. That a digital euro would mean the end of cash. We're going to look at that in a minute. Oh, they say, oh no, it's going to be beside cash, complementary to cash. Cash won't go away. Or be used for financial surveillance. Absolutely it will, allowing the ECB to block or track payments or access savings. That's the whole feature, that's the whole purpose of central bank digital currency, but these are misconceptions, they say. The European Central Bank and dozens of other central banks worldwide are exploring or putting into place central bank digital currencies as cash use declines. So again, it's for our benefit because we see fewer people are using cash, so that's why we're doing this. That's what they claim. No, it's because they want to control everyone. Conspiracy theories about governments planning cashless societies as a way of controlling citizens have proliferated since the COVID-19 pandemic, but ECB officials have been at pains to stress that a digital euro would complement cash, not replace it, right? And we have the quote from Christine Lagarde saying, when she's asked, what is cash? She says, well, the digital euro is cash, right? So I don't know what warped mind and what sort of parallel alternative reality a digital euro is cash, but this is the wordplay that they use so that when people say, hey, wait, what happened to all of our cash? You told us this would be a complement to cash. They'll say you have the digital euro. Well, no, I wanted physical cash. No, well, we told you, right? They're going to say, we told you that this was cash. It's cash. Issued by the ECB, the money would be risk-free. It would be held in a digital wallet, and payments could be made online or offline, allowing for cash-like anonymity. The ECB says it would not be able to directly link transactions to specific individuals. Do you believe any of this? If you believe any of this, then, I've got a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn, or, I mean, this is the whole point of the central bank digital currency. They pass all of these anti-money laundering laws. They claim the only people that use cash are drug dealers and terrorists and criminals. And then they say, oh, but we're going to set up this digital euro and anybody can use it. They'll be completely anonymous. We won't be able to track what specific individuals are using it. Then why are you putting all these restrictions on cash under the guise of anti-money laundering laws if you're telling us that criminals can use this anonymously to do whatever they want? Because it's a lie. They are lying to you. We see more of this propaganda. So this is from Lithuania. It says, could cash disappear in the European Union? It says the European Union is increasingly talking about the upcoming restrictions on the use of cash. The EU recently announced that it's considering adopting a new directive that would significantly limit cash payments in all member states. Experts are already calling this innovation a historic change that could completely change the payment culture in Europe. So, getting rid of cash, that's an innovation. Restricting your freedom, restricting your choices, clamping down on you, that's an innovation for historic change, right? We've talked about how they try to use this flowery language. They try to shape things and direct things to make this look like it's to our benefit. The trap they're putting us in, increasingly. This is awful. It says, as reported by a Spanish news portal, OK Diario, the European Union is planning to introduce, and it's already a done deal, this isn't planning, to introduce a common limit on the use of cash. Currently, the limit is, and this is It's 7,200 euros, I believe, in Lithuania, which is where this article was. It's different in every member nation in the EU. What they want to do is they want to have unified rules that cap it at 10,000 euro cash payments, and then they'll slowly lower that down until eventually it becomes zero, or inflation means that 10,000 euros buys you a stick of bubble gum or something like that, to where it becomes irrelevant. And then they'll just say, why are we still spending all this these resources creating this physical cash that nobody uses? Let's just eliminate it. It says this means you will not be able to pay any larger amounts of money in cash, but only electronically by transfer or card. The purpose of such changes is to combat the shadow economy, money laundering, and financial crime. So how are you doing that if you're telling us electronically, those electronic forms of payment are going to be anonymous and they can't be linked to individuals? Again, can you see how they're lying about all this? EU institutions say the restrictions are necessary to combat the shadow economy, money laundering, corruption, and other financial crimes. It's believed that reducing cash payments will make it easier to control cash flows and collect taxes, right? So if all of this is anonymous, the digital euro is anonymous, you can't track it to anybody, how can you do that? We were told it wouldn't be used as an instrument of control. How is it going to make it easier to collect taxes? Well, because they'll just take it out of your account, take it out of your digital wallet. This goes on. It says, although the exact date of entry into force is not yet known, experts predict that the European Union could approve the new regime as early as 2025. We just got told in the last article, oh, that's misinformation. Member states would then be given a certain transitional period to adapt to the new rules. Cash is not going to disappear completely. Again, do you really believe this? They keep trying to reassure people, oh, it's not going to disappear completely, but its role in everyday life could soon be significantly reduced. Consumers will have to change their habits and increasingly adapt to digital payments, which are inevitably becoming our future. Yes, they are inevitably becoming the future because the central banks and governments are pushing this, and they're restricting the use of cash. They're making it harder and harder to use cash so that they can trap us all into this system. Let's take a look at this article from Zero Hedge. It's titled, Digital Euro, European Central Bank Launches Charm Offensive. And again, that's what this is. This is a misinformation. I can't believe people are saying these things, these facts about the digital euro, because that's what it is. So they're trying to assuage people's fears, make them feel good about this, but this is part of a plan to trap us. It says the European Central Bank is pushing ahead with the digital euro project. On a new interaction platform, it's seeking dialogue with banks, startups, fintechs, and retailers. What is being sold as an open discourse, however, is in truth calculated camouflage. While the economic policy debate has shifted to the trade conflict with the US, things have gone quiet around the digital euro. Yet, the European Central Bank recently launched an online interaction platform where merchants and payment service providers can express their opinions about the new payment system. About 70 pre-selected market participants, and of course they're pre-selected because they'll give the answers the ECB wants. They won't push back. They won't talk the way these politicians do or average citizens would do about expressing the problems and concerns with digital tyranny. To test the ecosystem of the digital euro in real-world applications and identify problems. The platform enables the testing of new payment services such as conditional payments or the integration of digital wallets and post offices. Proponents of the project aim to modernize the payment system, granting access to the financial system even to those currently excluded due to their economic situation. So again, this is typical, inclusion. We're going to include everybody, as if cash doesn't already include everybody, as if everyone isn't already included in the economy. That's what they push. Well, yes, they want to include everyone in their system of digital tyranny. They don't want you to be excluded from that. They want to include you in it. That's what all that means. This goes on. It says, the digital euro is not a neutral means of payment. It's a tool of power. The ECB is no longer positioning itself merely as a central bank, but as the central technological infrastructure operator for payments in Europe. And they've said this in the past. They said, we're dependent on Visa and MasterCard and Apple Pay and all these US companies. We want the power. For the first time, it would have direct access to the entire monetary infrastructure of the Eurozone, from payment flows to account management, and even to the potential control of individual monetary units. The digital euro would give the ECB not only more insight into financial activity, but also far-reaching intervention and control possibilities over the financial system with significant political and social implications. Again, how would they have insight into financial activity? I thought it was all anonymous. That's what they were telling us in the first article. As a largely autonomous entity, the European Central Bank has evaded democratic control since its inception. Even during the last sovereign debt crisis 15 years ago, it managed to massively expand its real-world powers by buying up government bonds on a large scale and thus effectively beginning to monetize government debt. The planned introduction of a digital euro would further cement this immediate power, with potentially profound consequences for the balance between monetary sovereignty, fiscal responsibility, and democratic legitimacy. Against this backdrop, a central question arises. Why is the ECB pushing for the introduction of a digital euro right now? The Eurozone has been stuck in a structural, economic, and debt crisis for some time. Germany's economy, traditionally the EU's anchor of stability, is in its third year of a persistent recession. At the same time, many southern European countries have long since lost control over their national debt. Amid this fragile situation, the European Central Bank is increasing the pressure to implement digital central bank currency, not money, but CBDC, a step that is not only technocratically motivated, but also aims to deeply reshape the architecture of the European financial system. France, with a national debt of 120%, and Italy with 140%, will not be able to escape the debt spiral without massive monetary interventions. The ECB is firmly planned as the lender of last resort in the capitals of the Eurozone. Massive credit injections and yield curve control seem to be the only way out of this dilemma. A sovereign default is not an option, as it would mean the end of the entire Eurozone and thus their power. So they're not going to allow that to happen. In other words, they will not allow a breakup of the European Union. The Greek crisis is a reminder. However, the mountain of debt in the Eurozone has continued to rise to 95%. Bringing it under control in the event of a debt crisis would be much more complicated. The necessary expansion of the credit base to rescue over-indebted states, what that means is monetary printing and creation of euros, would be much more would be so massive that investors would question the stability of the currency. Exactly. The more euros you print, the less valuable they are. The purchasing power of those euros declines significantly the more you print. In such a scenario, the digital euro would not be a neutral means of payment, but a tool for market closure with programmable transactions that could nip any capital flight in the bud. In other words, the economy is collapsing if the debt of these nations is being destroyed by creation of the euro. They would put programmable limits on what could leave, what you could convert that into. They have complete control over it. The digital euro thus mutates into an electronic bolt. The ECB raises the drawbridges of the European Union fortress to prevent a flight from the system and thus the collapse of the euro. And of course, not just capital flight with foreign money leaving the European Union, but it prevents the escape of everyone in that system from leaving that system. It says what is obviously underestimated in the Frankfurt ECB tower is the speed at which mobile capital moves today. It's to be expected that the already beginning capital flight from the Eurozone will accelerate dramatically, and precisely at the moment when rumors spread in European financial centers that the ECB wants to close the gates with the help of a digital euro. Given the political movement in the United States against central bank digital currencies and the clear rejection of this technology by the Federal Reserve, I'm not sure of that. I think they may have publicly stated that, but that doesn't mean they really reject it. There is a danger that Europe, especially the Eurozone, will isolate itself through the ECB's initiative. Unlike the United States, which is currently pursuing deregulation and free market policies, the Euro CBDC appears as a digital panopticon, a central authority that monitors everything, controls everything, and reserves the right to intervene at its discretion. An opaque monster that directly threatens the sovereignty of the citizen. With the digital euro, the ECB is not only planning the creation of a new means of payment, we are witnessing an attempt to radically change the way we handle money. What is being touted as a convenient, cashless payment option could turn out to be a Trojan horse for deep control of the financial system and the individual citizen. And I would change that to will, not could. Unfortunately, the new interaction platform does not offer the opportunity to discuss these thoughts in detail. And that's exactly correct. They don't want these concerns to come to the forefront and for people to hear this. Let's take a look at this right here. So this says EU's new payment rules may face resistance in note-friendly Poland. Again, they're putting restrictions on cash. So the European Union will introduce new regulations that will restrict the use of cash, which may prove controversial in note-friendly Poland. I thought that this was going to complement cash. There's no problems with cash. From 2027, cash payments will be restricted to a maximum of 10,000 euros across all 27 member states. The move is reportedly an attempt to crack down on money laundering and tax evasion. Again, if the new digital euro is anonymous and they can't track individual users, how will it help? How is it any different from cash, physical cash? So how does it help you crack down on money laundering and tax evasion? However, some EU countries, notably Poland, Germany, and Austria, have opposed the move, saying it is clamping down on their financial freedom and enforcing a cashless society. Correct, which is the very things they told us in the first article. Oh, that's all misinformation. In Poland, a ban on cash payments above 3,513 euros in business-to-business relations has been enforced for several years. However, the new EU regulations cover private individuals as well. The new rules also apply to the activities of banks, financial companies, real estate agencies, casinos, and luxury goods sellers. Importantly, cryptocurrency exchanges must identify customers. Even for transactions exceeding 1,000 euros. Critics view the move as a push toward a cashless society where all transactions are trackable. Privacy advocates argue that, although aimed at curbing crime, it unfairly restricts law-abiding individuals who prefer using cash over digital payments. And it absolutely does. Again, they're trying to eliminate cash. They claim now, oh no, this is a complement to cash. But you see the restrictions they're putting on cash, and they'll put more and more and more on top of it. until eventually they just say, why do we even have this cash? Nobody's using it, because they're unable to. And then they'll get rid of it altogether. And they're attacking any other alternatives to this system as well. We read this from Cointelegraph. It says, EU to ban anonymous crypto accounts and privacy coins by 2027. Europe will ban anonymous crypto accounts and privacy coins starting in 2027 under sweeping new anti-money laundering regulations targeting service providers and token anonymity. The European Union is set to impose sweeping anti-money laundering rules that will ban privacy-preserving tokens and anonymous cryptocurrency accounts from 2027. Under the new anti-money laundering regulation, credit institutions, financial institutions, and crypto asset service providers will be prohibited from maintaining anonymous accounts or handling privacy-preserving cryptocurrencies. That means they've banned private-preserving cryptocurrencies, such as Monero and Zcash. So, guys, they're putting restrictions on any alternatives to the system, whether it be digital currencies not under its control or cash, and they're going to make the digital euro the only thing you can use if you live in the European Union. And if you want to know how, if you think I'm making all of this up, guys, this is going to destroy all private banking in the European Union. This is being pointed out. It's actually a point of debate in European Parliament. So let's take a look at this right here. This is from ING. It says the digital euro project is making progress. European banks should pay attention. Because one of the things they're actually debating is, should there be a limit on how many digital euros you can hold? And you go, well, if they're trying to roll this out and put everybody in it, why would they do that? Well, because to not put a limit on it threatens to destroy the entire European banking system. So let's scroll down and we'll figure out why that is and what that means and how all of this is going to play out. So if we get down here, we see the potential impact for the banking sector. There's a risk of deposit outflows. It says, while this has not been observed with the 3 existent central bank digital currencies, so they're talking here about, I believe, the Bahamas, Nigeria, and Jamaica, where they've actually full out launched nationwide central bank digital currencies. A central bank digital currency could attract depositors en masse, right? In the masses. So, well, it could, especially if they start to incentivize usage of it and make that happen. Because again, there's no real benefit as an average citizen to using this. The benefits are all for the European Central Bank and the totalitarians in the EU. It says, this is especially true during periods of uncertainty, as it represents a nearly risk-free currency through its direct claim to the central bank. What do they mean by that? Because, guys, it is not risk-free. Again, it's going to lead to complete tyranny. But what it means is they are the monopoly supplier of euros. So if your euros are held with them, they're not going to go bankrupt. The central bank is the one bank that cannot fail in terms of providing euros to its depositors. Keep that in mind. Think about that for a moment, what that means. And we'll wrap it all up as we get to the end of this. It says a large and sudden outflow of deposits from the banking sector to central bank digital currency personal accounts, because those accounts would be held with the European Central Bank, not your local bank, would have a significant negative impact on the banking sector in the European Union. So the deposits are flowing out of the banking sector and into the European Central Bank digital wallet. Firstly, it would imply a drop in credit institutions' liquidity levels, which consequently hardens banks' task to reach their liquidity requirements. So that creates more volatility. And in where we are right now in the financial system, it's going to topple a lot of banks. They're going to be insolvent. No one's going to want to lend to them, and they're going to fail. This would also imply a general increase of liquidity risk in the sector. Additionally, the impact of a large-scale deposit outflow could also spill over to the real economy as a result of banks' limited lending capacity. Overall, a deposit outflow could lower banks' liquidity levels, profitability, and ultimately also their resilience. So, banks, as these deposits flow out, they're able to lend less, which harms the economy. And their very existence, they call it resilience here, but their existence is threatened. Considering the potentially severe magnitude of these adverse outcomes, the European regulator stressed its willingness to implement adequate safeguards. The ECB therefore proposes the implementation of digital euro holding limits. These constraints would be set to limit individual holdings and prevent European citizens from using the digital euro as a store of value. It is not a store of value because they can create it at will. The European regulator explored several levels of holding limits ranging from 1,000 to 5,000 euros. Now, if their goal is to be innovative and lead everybody into this, why would they put these holding limits on it? Well, because they have to convince the banks to go along with it and to get it passed. But eventually, these are going to go away, these holding limits. They want you to hold everything in digital euros so that they can track everything you do. But if we leap ahead to that step where they want to go, it means the banking sector in Europe collapses, and thus the banking sector of the entire global economy. Through a balance sheet optimization model, they analyzed the effect of a deposit outflow on banks under each of those individual holding limits. The model forecast how credit institutions would manage the overnight deposit outflow while also minimizing funding cost and managing their liquidity risk. Estimates show that at the loosest limit, at 5,000 euros, the household overnight deposit outflow could reach a maximum of 12%. So 12% of the bank deposits in Europe vanish. With a $3,000 holding limit, European banks could see the outflow would not surpass 9%. Not sure why they phrased that way, but a maximum 9% outflow if we limit it to 3,000. At the current stage of the project, the regulator is considering enforcing the 3,000 personal holding limit. So what does all this mean? Well, it means they implement this. 9% of the deposits in European banks now flow out, in theory, and we'll talk in a minute about, what's likely to happen in reality, but in theory, 9% of those deposits come out of the banking system into a digital wallet directly held at the European Central Bank. And what does that do to the banking sector? It moves the banking sector further to the edge of the abyss of collapse where they've already been perched for quite some time, really probably since the great financial crisis, if not before. But again, that's assuming that their assumptions are right about that deposit outflow. I'm not sure that as many European citizens are going to be standing in line ready to do this. However, note what they said in here. We go back to a large and sudden outflow of deposits. And this is especially true during periods of uncertainty that the digital euro would attract depositors en masse. So think about this. Again, the European Central Bank is the monopoly supplier of euros and of digital euros. They can't fail in that. Now, the purchasing power of those euros might go down, but they will always be able to supply the people who hold a digital wallet with them with the euros, right? Because they can just create them out of thin air. Is the same true of banks? No, it is not. So if we have a banking crisis, which they're assuming that we will, if they're saying 9% of all the deposits in the European banking system flow into this, that creates a banking crisis. And what are people naturally going to do when they go, well, I can keep my currency in the bank over here. You know, I can take it out in cash, but there's limits on how much I can spend in cash. Or I can move it over here to the European Central Bank in this digital wallet and digital euros. And it's safe there because it's not, the European Central Bank isn't going to fail, even though my local bank may fail. And so the rollout of this causes a banking crisis, which actually facilitates a run on the banks, a greater banking crisis within the European Union, as people naturally make what would be considered the smarter move, which is to move your deposits to where you deem safer. And you'd have a run on the banks that collapses the banking system in the European Union. And they'll claim, well, we're the solution because we can't go bankrupt. So move everything here. We'll establish this new system to save us all from this private sector collapse that they facilitated through the introduction of the digital euro. And of course, you can't have the European banking system collapse, and that doesn't have contagion throughout the global economy. And we've talked about this before. I'm going to pin links to these at the top of the comments. Talked about this last August, how the current global financial crisis leads to biblical tyranny in 10 steps. All of this is leading us to the mark of the beast system, the rollout of these central bank digital currencies. They've been telling us they're going to do it in the European Union. It's coming in October. And of course, then they say, well, you know, it's going to harm banks, so we're going to hold it back a little bit. Well, if it's harming banks, why are you rolling it out at all? Well, because we want to harm the banks, and we want to cause more people to use the digital euro, which will destroy the banks, so that their only alternative is the digital euro. I'll also pin a link to this as well, this 3-part series for those who haven't read it. This is the end times financial system they want to trap you in. Again, rolling this out is indistinguishable in capability and function from the mark of the beast system. It's not the mark of the beast that we read about in Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 through 17. That will come during the tribulation. But the system that will facilitate and enable that mark of the beast system is being put in place right now, right in front of our eyes, in broad daylight. And they're showing us articles like this saying, oh, wow, it's a flurry of online misinformation. You watch videos like this, we're just giving you a flurry of online information. Christine Lagarde didn't say what you heard her say. Your eyes are lying to you, your ears are lying to you. You didn't hear what you heard, you didn't see what you saw. Guys, they're rolling this out in October. It may not be fully and completely implemented and enslave everyone in Europe by October, but that step is being taken. Those steps are being taken each day. They're marching toward this system. No doubt about it. They want full control, and the actual march toward that system is going to create a crisis that they'll then come to the rescue of, right? And say, well, we can solve this problem with our central bank digital currencies and our tokenized assets. The very things that are going to help facilitate this crisis is what they're going to propose as the solution. And most people are ill-informed, if not uninformed altogether, and they will buy into this, unfortunately. So guys, let me know what you think. Leave your comments below. Also, as a reminder, this Wednesday, we'll be having the Prophecy Roundtable. That'll include me, John Haller, Tom Hughes, Scott Townsend, Patrick Wood, and Pete Garcia. So you can find that on YouTube under the Live tab. So 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday is when we'll start that. If you miss it, the recording will still be available here afterwards, but make sure to check that out. But guys, they're lying to you. Not just the European Central Bank, all the governments. They mentioned in one of those articles, the Federal Reserve is against this. They are not. They're saying that because it's politically untenable to say they're for it publicly. But their actions speak otherwise. They've been facilitating and creating these programs and taking these steps to implement central bank digital currencies in 134 countries comprising 98% of the global economy. They want them everywhere because all these politicians and central bankers all around the world, what they all universally want is complete power and control. Make sure you're informing the people around you. Make sure you're telling the people around you the Bible foretold all of this almost 2,000 years ago. And the only hope we have is Jesus Christ. So make sure you're sharing the good news with as many people as possible. Again, leave your comments below. Make sure to hit the like, share, subscribe buttons. God willing, I will see you on Wednesday. Bye.